Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness.
This is episode 86.
Hello, everyone. It's a new week here, and it's Elise Seifert joined by Julie Wilson. Hey, Julie.
Hey, Elise.
So today I shared a social media post with you I was hoping we could discuss.
For sure.
It was posted by the Brain Health Doctor, and it's all about energy takers and energy givers.
Ooh, sounds interesting.
I'm going to list off the energy takers, and then maybe you could list off the energy givers for everyone.
Perfect.
So our energy takers are focusing on the past, inconsistent sleep, mess and clutter, sedentary time, social media, overworking, dehydration, screen time, resentment, negativity, junk food, the news, alcohol, stress, and fear.
Wow, that's quite the list.
Mm-hmm.
So energy givers, we have music, nature, resting, sunlight, positivity, gratitude, hydration, meditation, movement, breath work, community, decluttering, consistent sleep, eating whole foods, learning something new. So what resonates with you?
When I'm looking at the energy takers, I think a big one for me is focusing on the past. I know sometimes I can get stuck where I'm thinking about situations and I think about maybe things I said or actions that I took, and I think about how it could have gone differently. And I think it's important to self-reflect, but I think it's also important to recognize that there are things I cannot change and I have to accept that.
You start spiraling, right? Spiraling
totally.
with that, and it goes over and over, and it does. It wipes you out when you start getting into that pattern of rehashing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know another one is inconsistent sleep. I was discussing this with someone recently, and they were talking about how when they have a poor sleep, it's almost worse than having a hangover.
100%. Sleep is critical. Refreshing, rejuvenating your brain. It's so important, sleep. I guess a couple of the energy takers, overworking.
Yes.
That's a sort of nature of the environment that I work in. So being cognizant of that. And I think the other one would be alcohol for me. I love a glass of wine, but yeah, you have 2 glasses of wine or 3, and you just realize it zaps that energy. Although on the other hand, you sort of have that initial, at least for me, not everyone, give you a bit of energy, but then you crash hard, right?
Yes. I find that alcohol affects my sleep. So that's kind of a way that it zaps my energy.
It goes in hand with that, problem sleeping. I agree with you that you never get a good night's sleep if you've had too much alcohol. That's for sure. Interesting that one of the energy takers they have is the news. That was probably huge, right, during COVID. Mm-hmm. I heard, I don't know about you, but a lot of folks saying, I just have to turn off the news because it's just taking everything out of me. So I think that is definitely an energy taker. What about energy givers? What resonates with you?
I think consistent sleep is a big one for me. Something that I resonate with right now is learning something new. I've been taking pottery classes, so using the wheel to throw pottery, which has been super fun and really motivating, and it just puts a spring in my step. I think having that to look forward to. So I think learning something new is amazing. And I think people should just continue to do it. Just go out there and see what you can learn because it's really energizing.
Not to mention, building new communities, right?
Yes.
And the social aspect to it, that's definitely an energy giver.
Mm-hmm. How about you?
Hydration. Let's talk about that, because I was never a good, consistent intaker of water. Mm-hmm. And yet I recognize and I feel the benefits when I'm hydrated. But just getting to that point. So I have now on my phone, I've got a water app, which you can set for various times, but it has been one of the best apps that I could have ever downloaded, because I get that constant reminder of, and it sounds like a little water drop. And it's just, now everyone knows, oh, Julie, water, whenever they hear my little water app, right? But it is a great reminder, and the benefits of being hydrated, I've learned through experience, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. And I find it interesting that they have dehydration as an energy taker, because it's so true. I know I'll wake up and I'll think, oh, I feel really dehydrated. I didn't drink enough water yesterday.
Or headaches. You start to get a headache and you're like, okay, let's check. Again, self-awareness. Let's check. Have I had enough water today? Mm-hmm. And often, you take a couple of glasses of water, and soon enough, that headache starts to subside.
Definitely.
And the other one on that energy giver is sunlight. Oh. So when the spring hits and you have that spring sun, you can see the difference in meetings, in conversations you have with individuals, just that little bit of vitamin D, the sun.
Oh, it's incredible. I know I used to work in a space where there was no natural light. It was kind of in the middle of a building. So I was always tired and I just couldn't figure out why. And then I moved to a different space that had natural light. And I realized, oh, it's the light. I was not getting enough sunlight. It's so important.
It is. Yeah. And you definitely see the difference between, I know there's sunlight in the winter, but you definitely, there's a difference in the winter sun and the spring, the summer sun. I know it's still light, but I guess I'm just happy right now because we're in spring and there's just something so energetic about the sun and getting out in nature. That's another energy giver as nature. So I think just getting out right now in the spring and walking, enjoying the sun, seeing everything so green.
I think a good challenge for myself is try to balance more energy givers over the energy takers and see how that goes.
I'll do the same.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds. Today's interview is in the category of mental wellness. Last week, we interviewed Jodi Skeates about the tragedy she faced in 2017 when her husband Scott died in a scuba diving accident. She told us about how she felt and what she went through. Jodi is now using those experiences to help other people and to live her life in a different way. Welcome back, Jodi.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Jodi Skeates has a lengthy career as an in-house counsel for the life and health insurance industry, including a high-profile government lobbyist with the Canadian Life and Health Insurance Association. She retired from full-time in-house legal practice earlier this year. She lives in Burlington, Ontario. She's a founding director of the chair of the board of Soaring Spirits Canada. So Jodi, as part of my own wellness journey, I've come to love the expression, live life in every breath, which I heard in the movie. But I'm trying to better understand how to do that. I'm trying to implement it. And I expect you meant it in a different way, but when you ended your LinkedIn post that I saw, where you talked about your experiences, you said, keep breathing and make each of those breaths count. So let's chat about how you are now helping other people and how your outlook on life has changed. You helped start Soaring Spirits Canada. You started academic wine education and you joined the board of directors of Niagara Grape and Wine Festival. You've helped build a school in Kenya. Let's start with Soaring Spirits Canada and Camp Widow Toronto. I want to make sure we get to tell that story. So how did that start for you?
I was researching in-person widow communities. I had attended some local events in Burlington, but I was quite young in comparison to the other attendees. And I was desperate to find a community of people that were similar age to me, that had gone through the experience of losing a partner to death. And I typed in widow in Toronto, and all of a sudden it came up Camp Widow Toronto, and I was interested. I just decided to take a leap of faith and go. So I showed up at this weird event called Camp Widow Toronto, not knowing what to expect. In the 3 days of the event, my life was changed in wonderful ways that I could have never anticipated. At that camp, the founder of Soaring Spirits International, her name is Michelle Neff Hernandez. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman. She had started Soaring Spirits International and Camp Widow 15 years ago, and it had been brought up to Toronto. And they were starting a campaign because they wanted to create a Canadian organization that could provide the programming with a bit more Canadian content to Canadian residents. So I had raised my hand at that time to provide some financial support to that campaign. And I had also approached Michelle and said, hey, I'm a lawyer. I'm interested in governance. I would love to help you out in any way that I can. And next thing I know, I'm on a board for this newly formed charity in Canada. We've started offering Camp Widow Toronto through Soaring Spirits Canada as opposed to Soaring Spirits International.
That's amazing. If I could, though, let me just back up a bit. Before you got to the point where you were working on a new Canadian version of it, what did you actually yourself get out of Camp Widow? What was your experience there?
It was surprising. I, for some reason, was drawn to a workshop on trauma. I can't explain why I was drawn to it. There were other workshops that would have been way more fun to attend in that time slot, but I felt that I needed to go to this trauma workshop.
Can I just ask, when you say trauma, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's interesting because I came out of that workshop having a different definition of trauma than going in. When I went into that workshop, I was thinking that it was my husband who had suffered a traumatic death. And it was that trauma that we were going to discuss. What I learned in the workshop is that I had gone through a traumatic experience, and I was the one suffering from some of the hallmark symptoms of PTSD. And I had some tools that I could take away from that workshop and help myself recover from my traumatic experience. It really shifted where I was in my widowed journey.
Did you have a chance to talk to other people who were going through the experiences you were going through?
I did. It was fascinating. I met a woman in the trauma workshop that we had communicated in a Facebook group, but we didn't know each other's names, but we heard each other's stories. We knew, it was like, oh, you're Nadine. And she's like, you're Jodi. So I was able to connect with some people that I had known virtually. But it wasn't just the trauma workshop. It was some of the other types of workshops. So, John, we're both lawyers. And if we were to go to a legal conference, it would probably set up so that there were lawyers of a certain vintage. So if they were newly called or at what point they were in their career or senior counsel partner or whatever. And then it might have breakout groups based on the type of law you're practicing or what you need to work on. Do you need to work on your litigation skills? Do you need to work on your management skills? Maybe it would have regional breakouts. That's how we would experience a legal conference. So if you take that and you put the widow lens on it, we would break out based on how long it had been since our person had passed away, but also by the type of death, also by some of the challenges we were facing, whether it be you had kids, you didn't have kids, your partner died by suicide or overdose, your partner died during COVID, and you didn't have a chance to say goodbye or have closure of your traditional chosen end of life celebrations, funerals, whatnot. When you go to Camp Widow, you're constantly meeting people that have had a sliver of the same experience as you, yet their experience is entirely different. So I met people who had lost their partner through accident and, like me, didn't have a chance to say goodbye. I met with people who it had been a second marriage. And of course, you often get asked, is it worse to be divorced or widowed? And so, it was good to be able to talk to those people about how irritating that question is when you're a widowed person who's been divorced. So I just created some friendships and networks and connections. And It was a life-altering experience. I had no idea what I was going into on Friday morning, and I came out a different person on Sunday afternoon.
Something we chatted about briefly when we were setting up the interview is the concept of widow. So I associate that with a husband or wife who loses their spouse. But it's a lot broader than that. Tell us what widowed people are and who participates in things like Soaring Spirits Canada and Camp Widow.
I think a lot of us hold that stereotype, John, that you become a widowed person after a lengthy marriage and you're surrounded by your children and grandchildren. And it was, wonderful that your partner got to live a long and healthy life. But that is not the reality. There are a lot of widowed people that get disenfranchised simply because they were in a non-traditional marriage or same-sex relationship. They weren't married. They were living common law. Maybe they had separated and their partner died and they weren't quite divorced. Sometimes widowed people can get disenfranchised in their grief because they don't meet that traditional stereotype of what we think a widowed person should be. Camp Widow is got a very broad definition of the term widow. It's non-secular. It's open to anyone who identifies as losing the person they thought they were going to spend the rest of their life with.
Let's say that there is a widowed person out there who wants to try and find Soaring Spirits Canada. How could they do that?
It's quite easy. Our website is soaringspirits.ca. We also have a website called Camp Widow Toronto. It's easy to find us through either Soaring Spirits Canada, or there is also the Soaring Spirits International page. And those all link together. So it's easy to find us with a simple Google search.
You also mentioned that there's some resources available online. What are some of the resources that someone could find?
Soaring Spirits International has a variety of web-based tools available for widowed people. They have newly widowed packets, which you get the American or the Canadian version, and they will mail them out to you with sort of some tips and tricks on what to think about in the early days of your widowhood and what to expect. There is it's called Widowed Village. It's an online chat group where you can search for certain topics and join a chat group of individuals that are going through the same challenges as you. There is a pen pal program. There are a lot of articles and other sorts of resources available on the Soaring Spirits International webpage. And then, of course, there are the in-person events, which are Camp Widow, which is held right now in Toronto, San Diego, and Tampa. And there are also some pop-up camps that are held in the United States. So there was one in Denver. There's been one in LA. There are some that are focused on LGBTQ widowed people. Sometimes there's a focus on children. So at the last camp I attended in San Diego, they had a kids camp so that the parent could go and enjoy the conference experience or enjoy their camp experience, but their child could also be surrounded with other children that had lost their parents. So there's quite a lot of resources outside of the in-person Camp Widow experience.
Let's talk about Toronto. It so happens that this show is probably going to air on September 19th. So that's about a month and a half before November. And I understand there's going to be a Camp Widow in Toronto in November 2023. How can people learn more about it and register?
So Camp Widow indeed is being held in Toronto at the Marriott Eaton Centre, November 10th to 12th of 2023. And if you do a simple Google search for Camp Widow Toronto, you will find the link to registration.
I want to switch topics to the one that I mentioned early on too, being a little selfish here because of my life in every breath concept. I am intrigued by the concept of living life in every breath and how other people see that. Given your experiences, how do you see making every breath count now?
Scott's death made me realize how precious and fragile life is. Your life could end in 5 breaths, essentially. And we've breathed more than 5 breaths as we've been talking here. Life is precious. It shouldn't be taken for granted. I didn't die. It was Scott that died. I refuse to let Scott's death be my destruction. I know I can't grow old alongside Scott, but as I continue to age, I can continue to grow. There's a quote, we must be willing to let go of the life we have planned so as to accept the one that is waiting for us. I've really tried to honor Scott, honor the love we had for each other, but gently release the plans we had and try to find a new path forward in life. And in doing that, I've really focused on the things that make me happy and will allow me to live to a healthy old age. You know, I talked about retiring at 52. You don't realize the chronic stress you're under as a lawyer until it's gone. I have never felt so healthy and happy in my life. I listen to my body now. But I also don't say no to new challenges. I don't immediately say no to things. I actually will sit back and think, there's this lovely man named John Webster who's asked me to speak on his podcast. My initial instinct is fear, but maybe I can sit with that for a minute. And is there anything I can say on a podcast that would help other widowed people find Soaring Spirits or find Camp Widow Toronto? And in that way is Scott's death allowing me to serve a purpose to other people that in the future will walk through the same journey as I've gone through.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. You might be surprised to hear that I also said that John Webster wants me to talk on this podcast. And it's really hard for me to talk about my personal life on podcasts. But like you, I am hoping that by having these kind of conversations, we do help people. And I'm sure we will. And I hope some people can connect with Soaring Spirits Canada and Camp Widow. I'm talked to a few people in this context. What I've heard from people is it makes all the difference in the world when you can speak with someone else who's going through the experience you're going through, because not to be dismissive of other people, but they just don't get it. Like they just don't understand what you're going through. And so if you were talking to me, I could be as empathetic and sympathetic as I could be, but you'd be able to tell that I just don't get it. So it's nice that you can be with people who do. We're toward the end of the interview, Jodi, and I'm about to ask the question that we ask every guest, but I don't want to cut you off if there's anything else you wanted to talk about before we did that. So is there anything?
I would love some additional support for Soaring Spirits Canada, and I would love if people could think creatively. A lot of times when you say support, you think it means financial support. Certainly as a not-for-profit, we need sponsors and donors. But the support that I'm asking is that anyone who's listening to this podcast that knows a widowed person to please share the podcast with them so they can learn about the tools and resources that are available through Soaring Spirits International, Soaring Spirits Canada, and at Camp Widow. That is what we do at Soaring Spirits. We create the practical tools and relevant resources to give to people that we wish we had at the beginning of our journey. We're there to support the people that come after us. We're completely volunteer-based. There's no remuneration to anyone in our organization. We try not to have finances be the reason why somebody can't attend Camp Widow. So there are always opportunities for individuals to apply for financial assistance or register at a organization subsidized rate. So people shouldn't be put off by the cost of coming to Camp Widow Toronto. If you need the community, you need the tools, you're a widowed person, please reach out and we will see what we can do to make your attendance happen.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And I hope people do reach out. The other thing you wanted me to mention to listeners is that I'll put some of the links to Soaring Spirits and some of the particular groups. For example, the community group for LGBTQ plus widowed people. There's a group for men. There's a group for Black and widowed community. So I'll put those links in our show notes. And so here we are at the end of the interview. And as you know, we ask every guest the same question in a context where there's many areas of wellness in our life, but not enough time to focus on all of them at any given time. It's essentially a mini wellness check-in. Are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life, Jodi? And if so, can you think of even one thing that you can do to foster wellness in that area?
I was at a workshop at Camp Widow once where they talked about how your relationships with other people change as you go through your grief journey. The visual they give is putting people on a shelf. You don't have to decide whether or not you're going to carry them through the rest of your life. You just need to put them in a box and put them on the shelf. Their intentions are good. It's just they're not giving you what you need at that particular time in your grief journey. I have some relationships that I've put on a shelf. And it's time for me to blow the dust off of those and heal some of the relationships that evolved after Scott's death. That seems to be my biggest angst right now, is knowing that there are some relationships with people that I need to heal.
It's very interesting. It's a tough concept to put people on a shelf. I can see why it would be necessary, but it also must be very difficult. And I can also imagine it being a real challenge to make them work again. So I'm going to send some good vibes your way, because I think you're in for a challenge, but I think you can do it, and I hope that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jodi, for 2 interviews. It's been really helpful, and we hope that we've helped other people too.
Thank you.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of The Adventures of the Starving Artist. You might remember that I was excited about having more free time in my week a few segments ago, and in what is perhaps classic Cameron fashion, I've managed to fill all that free time, so I don't have it anymore, but not a complaint. It's all good stuff. This past week, we drove down, my brother and I, down to our old stomping grounds in Cambridge, Ontario, where we had a whole lot of stuff lined up. But on my end, what we did is we hit our friend's 31st birthday on the 31st, the champagne birthday. So happy birthday to Heather. And that was a super fun event. Always great to celebrate with friends. And it was a cute little spot that I'd never been before, up in Waterloo. So nice to see some new scenery and check that out as well. The next day, I played some music. I had the honor of playing music in my friend Mallory and Rob's wedding. So congratulations to Mal and Rob, and thanks again for having me out playing. It was a beautiful ceremony. Great day for it. The weather was perfect. Just fabulous time all around. While I was in town, I also managed to line up a few in-person lessons with students who have been teaching online since moving to Ottawa, and that was fantastic. It's always nice to be able to make music in the same room instead of over Zoom. You know, juggling the internet delays and hiccups and, lag and all that stuff. It's no fun, and it really is not quite the same as doing it in person. As a double bonus, these students each had grand pianos in their homes, so I got to rock on an actual grand piano instead of my keyboard. So that's just a bunch of wins all around. And as if that wasn't enough, on the drive back, my brother and I decided to take a bit of a detour into Toronto instead of just cruising on through, and we met up with my buddy Gal. We were kind of winging it, but what ended up happening was we crawled through the insane traffic on Lakeshore. It was insane. Found an exorbitantly priced parking spot, because Toronto, and, stretched our legs for an hour and a bit, and checked out the Earnshaw. So it was super cool to see the snowbirds do their thing. I really like the sound of that. And I know it's not for everybody, but I thought it was pretty energizing and a cool way for people to get out and enjoy the city. That's the quick update for me this week. Jam-packed with all kinds of music all the time, and a little bit of, other kinds of music, namely jet engine sounds. I have a gig tomorrow night at the Gilmore up here, so I'm going to prepare for that. And now I'm going to get some rest. Thanks very much for listening. Hope you have a great week. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
We don't have any ads yet, and that's on purpose. We're sharing stories and experiences to give back, to inspire, and get people talking about wellness. 2 quick points. My personality is to present things in a progression. Once I cover a point, I often don't go back to it. If you want to see the whole picture about wellness I'm trying to paint, listen to all our episodes from the start. Second, it's costly to put out a podcast. You can help me defray that cost by buying my book, Accidentally Well by John Webster. It's available on Amazon, Indigo, or anywhere you buy books online. Please consider buying a copy.
Move that body like we're meant to do.
Well, John, it seems like we're always talking about walking, and here we are talking about walking again.
I think we're going to talk about walking forever because I honestly believe that walking is probably one of the greatest ways for everybody to move their body. Anyone capable of walking, it's one of the greatest things that you can do to stay healthy and happy.
I agree. It seems like the more we learn about it, the more important it is just to get out and walk.
It's so accessible.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to train.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sure, if you want to walk really far, you're going to have to start increasing your distances.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything. You don't need special shoes or special clothes or...
I say that, but then I always buy expensive shoes.
True, you do, but not for walking.
No, that's true. I want to talk about an article. This one is from the Jerusalem Post. It's called Could Walking Extend Your Lifespan? Study. And it's by Jodi Skeates, published August 9th, 2023. It's fascinating because essentially, we've heard this thing about 10,000 steps and do you need that much? Mm-hmm. This article, what I love about it is says a couple things. It says any walking is good for you.
Yeah, any walking.
And they have to do more study, but so far, based on the study they've done, there's no upper limit.
Yeah.
So the more you walk, the more it helps decrease your chance of dying from different diseases.
Mm-hmm. From quite a few diseases, not just cardiovascular disease, but a lot of diseases.
And this analysis came from 226,889 people from 17 different studies around the world. Mm-hmm. It shows the more you walk, the greater the health benefits. The risk of dying from any cause or from cardiovascular disease decreases significantly with every 500 to 1,000 steps you walk. And, a lot of times we hear that 10,000 steps, but again, this article says, hey guys,
500.
You don't have to do 10,000. I actually was talking about, trying to do at least, I think it was somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000.
Yeah, that was ideal.
But that would be a good start.
Mm-hmm. I read that during COVID, we actually lost our mobility and we haven't regained it. We're not back to pre-COVID movement.
I think you mean by lost mobility is you just stopped
doing things because we couldn't. We were stuck in our houses and we became much more sedentary and haven't improved.
Okay, let me push back a bit. We weren't stuck in our houses. We were allowed to go out for walks. Even in the worst part of it, they allowed people to go outside and go for walks.
I know, but I think anxiety and we weren't aware or sure of what was going on. So people were quite afraid of leaving their house.
Whatever happened, first of all, lots of people, we don't know from our trip to London, if you're, for example, taking public transportation in a big city, you walk a lot.
Yes.
Right? You get out, you walk to the subway and you're going down all these escalators. Mm-hmm. So that all goes out the window. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of people, I guess you're right, they just didn't feel like getting out and moving.
Right.
And now lots of people are still working from home, lots of time. Mm-hmm. But whatever, I was shocked. I'm surprised. So I'm a little different, I guess, than the average person because moving that body is so important to me and you're the same way.
Yeah.
I kind of slowed down a bit during COVID in terms of distances and I stopped doing as much high intensity interval training, but I kept going. And I would have thought that most people would want to get out there because they're so tired of being stuck in their house.
Yeah.
So it's shocking to hear that the average mobility went down during COVID and it hasn't improved.
Mm-hmm. I found that shocking too. And generally, I find that if you make walking part of your lifestyle, like you said, walking to the bus, walking to the grocery store, or just trying to put a walk in your lunch hour, it really will help add steps and add time to your life.
Just thinking about it, you mentioned the sedentary lifestyle, and they said that is bad. Mm-hmm. So the article says there's strong evidence that a sedentary lifestyle can contribute to an increase in cardiovascular disease and a shorter life. Mm-hmm. In really simple terms, walking, at least that breaks up that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So sedentary lifestyles, like for example, someone who plops down in their comfy chair, their couch, and stays in it most of the day, or they're always sitting down, or they're
in their office, they're working at the office all day, and then they come home, they're exhausted, so then they sit on the couch and watch TV all night and then go to bed. Yeah,
so you're sitting in your desk all day, you're sitting in your chair all day, and if you have to force yourself or find a way, or hopefully you actually enjoy going out for a walk, then at least it breaks up the sedentary lifestyle. It might be that simple.
Exactly.
So people, we are going to keep talking about walking. We love walking.
Get out there and walk.
There's a thought. Popped up while running. Okay, it's a walking pop-up, not a running pop-up. It still counts, I think. And for some reason, when I was walking to work the other day, I was thinking about the concept of humility. It's strange because I was going to say I try and be humble, but you can't try and be humble, can you? It's kind of like trying to be authentic. You're either authentic or you're not. You're either humble or you're not. If you try to be humble, you're not humble. Anyways, I was thinking about being humble. I think lots of people think of humble people as weak, right? So they're meek and humble. I don't see it that way. A lot of times, the strongest people I know are humble. I think part of it is because of how people are looking at it. It's not about thinking that you're less important or you're not worthy. That's not really how I see it. Being humble is about seeing the worth in everybody. It's about seeing the value and the importance and the worthiness of everyone. You recognize everyone's innate value, which you share. It's about recognizing the power of nature, your place on the planet and in the universe. And we're all part of a larger society, and we're all interconnected. Because once you see the value in other people, how can you dismiss it? Being humble is natural and it's warranted. Being arrogant, self-important, solipsistic, it's silly. It just means you don't see the value of other people. So, in my mind, humble is strong. Humble is not weak. It's me. Am I?
Yeah. So let me say, flip side of the coin.
And we're here with another flip side with Elise Seifert and Stephen Seifert.
Hello.
Hello, Stephen. So today we're here to talk about something scary that happened to us. And it was a house fire next door to our house.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying.
That's right. And our house is very close to our neighbor's house, you would say.
Yeah, I would say it's only a few meters away.
That's right. Yeah. So very close. And it's a triplex. So there were multiple renters living in the home. How it happened, we're not sure. But for us, our experience was it was the middle of the night.
Yeah, it was around 1 a.m. And I hear Elise say, "Stephen, our neighbor's house is on fire." And I was sort of in a dream state. And I wasn't sure if that was real, but I shot up.
You did.
And I look out the window. So we have a large window door that is in our bedroom. And I just see this giant ball of fire engulfing our neighbor's home, the back of their home.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. I'm not even sure what woke me up. I think it was the sound of the fire. I think I could hear it and I was kind of in a daze. And then I could see the orange light through that window. And I thought, that's weird. Sometimes I see light at night because cars are driving by on that street, but that street's not very busy. And the light's still there. So I went to look just by chance. And it was huge. I've never seen flames so high.
Yeah, I mean, so we're close, but we weren't that close from our bedroom. And I could feel the heat.
Right.
I could feel the heat in our bedroom.
Yes. And the scariest part for me, I think, was that there are trees on our neighbor's property that touch our fence.
Yeah.
Which is attached to our deck. So it was really scary to watch this fire. And we were just praying, don't catch the trees. Like, don't catch the trees, because you just see these flames touching and tickling those leaves. And it was really terrifying. So we were standing there just watching and we couldn't really hear anything going on. We weren't sure if anyone had alerted the authorities yet. So we called just in case. And how long do you think it took them?
I would say it was around 10 minutes from the time that you call. And we're presuming that your call was
right. We think
was what brought the fire trucks there. And I just remember that each minute felt like 5 minutes as we're watching the flames just keep growing and spreading. And the tree on the other side of the property was catching fire. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what if the trees on our side that are adjacent to our deck catch fire? And next thing you know, our deck would be on fire and it wouldn't take very long. And our deck is right next to our house. And what if our house is on fire? And that was something that I just felt a little guilty about. Here are 3 groups of people who are going to be displaced from their home. And I'm feeling a little guilty because as much as my hopes and my thoughts were with them, they were also with us.
Yes, for sure. And I think it's hard not to feel that in that moment. I definitely was feeling that as well. And I know I was running between the front of the house and the back of the house. So at the front of the house, we have a window in our bathroom. And I just kept looking, thinking, where are the firefighters? Where are the firefighters? Like, where's the truck? I can't see it yet. And then running back to the back. And finally, the trucks arrived. And it seemed like minutes that it took for them to set up the hoses, which I'm sure is standard.
Yeah. So again, they arrived and they were at the front of the home and the fire was on the back. And we're like, go, there's a way around. Please go to the back. Go to the back.
Yeah. And I feel like we're trying to talk to the firefighters and they're doing their job. It was so hectic. And I think I was feeling the same way as you. I was thinking, oh, what would happen to us if this catches to our house? How terrible would this be?
Yeah. And it took us such a long time to get a home. I was just wondering, where would we go? What would we do if we couldn't live here anymore? But fortunately, they were able to put the fire out almost immediately.
I couldn't believe how quickly they could put that fire out because it seemed huge. I thought this is going to take a lot of manpower to put this fire out, but they were very efficient. They got it out very quickly, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, it was just a matter of minutes, and I'm just so thankful for them. And just a shout out to all emergency responders. They really did a great job on that one, even though we, in the moment, didn't feel like it.
No, of course. And I think afterwards, we were so riled up. We couldn't go back to sleep. And I know for me, I was just feeling incredibly grateful to have what we had and to have what we have now. So having our home, having each other, and knowing that we were both safe and the home was safe.
Absolutely.
Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way.
It's sign-off time. It's Elise here with John and Sheila.
Hello.
Hey.
Well, another week done. I can't believe it. That one went really quick. I had a great week. It was my second week back to school, and I feel like my students are starting to understand the routine. So that's pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to go to a wedding at Niagara-on-the-Lake, which was beautiful. Got to see a lot of people, which was lovely. And then looking forward to this week, I don't really have much going on, which is nice. I have no pottery classes. We're taking a week off because we just have to let our pieces dry and bisque them in the kiln. So I think I'm actually going to try to do something that I never do, which is some fall gardening.
Oh,
I never do a fall cleanup in my garden, and I always regret it in the spring because it's so much work. So that's my goal this week.
Oh, and you might have nice weather for it.
Exciting times.
Mm-hmm.
Exciting. Woo woo. How about you, Sheila?
Well, I have a little story about the wedding. So it was a family wedding. So we had a lot of family at the wedding, and we were doing our famous dance on the dance floor. And I think I lost my earring at that time. I don't know when I did, but I noticed I lost my earring, and I was really upset because it's like my favorite pair of earrings. So I was walking around looking for these earrings, like just one earring.
Making lots of sad faces.
It was very sad. So I asked a few people. I asked the bride, and we decided that we'd leave. And John was like, I'll just buy you a new pair of earrings. But, you know, it's not the same, right? So I decided I'd wait till the next day and call and see if I can talk to someone, maintenance or housekeeping, or someone maybe picked it up. Because who wants one earring, right? So I tried calling and couldn't get through to anyone. No one was answering the phone. And I tried like 3 hours, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And so then we got to Ottawa because John was running his half marathon in Ottawa. And I was scrolling Instagram, and I noticed that one of my nieces was still in Niagara-on-the-Lake. So I left her a message, or messaged her, DM'd her, and said, hey, are you still in Niagara? You happen to be near the location. Do you mind going and checking it out? And because no one's responding to my calls. So she went, and she said that she literally was walking in during another wedding. Like another wedding was going on, and she's like sneaking in, and people were setting up and doing all this stuff. And she asked, and they said, oh yeah, we find earrings all the time. Let me go see if anyone found anything. And she found it. She found my earring. I was so excited. And it just made the wedding that much better. Like it was a really beautiful wedding, but I got my earring back, which was just so exciting. So that is it for me. What about you, John?
It also made our trip in Ottawa that much better because we were in Ottawa and we found out. And it was just like this great feeling that poof, you found it.
Yay.
So I had an intense few days. I had a really important court hearing situation on Friday that went the whole day. Meanwhile, I had to get to Niagara in the Lake, a couple hours away. By a certain time, it didn't work out perfect, but the court hearing ended up working out well, which was good. So I was really happy about that. But whenever that happens, it's a kind of an intense day, and then you kind of have a bit of a letdown, but went straight into the wedding. So I tried to keep my energy up, and then we had to drive for a while, keep the energy up. And then I did my run, and I did it.
Yay!
So it wasn't just a half marathon. It was a 5K at 8 o'clock and then a half marathon at 9:30. And the only thing I had to do to make sure the day went well, don't go too fast in the 5K. Don't go too fast at the start of the half marathon.
Don't go too fast. Don't go too fast.
I say to Sheila, I just finished the 5K and I went too fast.
Too fast.
I don't know. It's just so funny. Like you just get carried away. It feels so much easier on race day for some reason. I was going faster than I have in a long time. And so that burns your legs out. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'll be okay because I have this rest in between. And I found this cool Muskoka chair, chilled out for a while, did the other one. And all I had to do there was just not go too fast for the first 5K. And I'm like, I'm going too fast again. Like it's so hard to have the discipline to slow down. And then I hit 10K. The total is 21.1. for a half marathon. So I hit 10K. I'm like, I am in trouble because I'm suffering already. So the one thing you really learn, the best lesson, I've said this before about long distance running, is you learn how to endure suffering, which is actually quite a thing to be able to do. And now I've done it enough time that I can even do it with a smile.
Very good.
So I'm like, this is not working. I had to do some walking and running and I was feeling pretty rough. But I'm like, just keep moving forward. And sure enough, I just kept moving forward. And then I crossed the line and it's all good.
And I actually went and visited someone. I visited Carolyn in Ottawa. So John sent a text while I was with her saying, hey, I'm done. I crossed the finish line. And so I said to Carolyn, I have to go. And she was like, how did he do? I said, well, he finished. Yeah. That's all that matters. He did it.
In prior ones, I would always be going for a time. But in my marathon last year and this event this year, I just wanted to get it done. It was just a Kickstarter, and it really did. I didn't get all the perfect training done that I wanted to, especially in terms of weight, but it kickstarted me in so many great ways, and I'm really energized for 6 months of doing more good stuff. So we're rambling on a bit tonight on the sign off. Yeah. So I think I should shut things down. Anything else from you, Elise?
Nope.
Okay, everybody. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Hope to see you again next week, and have a good one.
That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.